Pete Fanufinick here for DCOM 20, Northern Montezuma Wildlife Management Area Loop Road Unit, which is Department of Environmental Conservation. Look at this, great place. I brought the wife and kids up here, and the dogs. And we're here looking at this great view here in upstate New York, hours from New York City in Brooklyn. There it is. Look at that. That is not the Love Canal. Just so we're clear, that would be farther west. Hours west. A couple hours at least or so. The Love Canal, which is still a creepy area to visit. We like to go there on vacation and check out the Love Canal area, and even the roads around the fenced-in area of Love Canal are beat up, full of potholes, abandoned houses, abandoned cars, abandoned property. A lot of times you don't know if people live there or not. However, this area, Northern Montezuma map number 5, Wildlife Management Area, is not Love Canal. Love Canal is just something that happened. People do their best. It's sealed off now, cleaned up, and resting comfortably. This area is free from the toxic waste, and look at it. Just wonderful. It's Friday the 13th here in June. Happy Friday the 13th. A historical day. Accelerated in thoughts and minds by the movies. Part 1 and 2 were really scary movies. Part 3 was not scary. That was in 3D. Excellent looking 3D in the movie theaters. However, with the 3D came laughter and fun and less horror. 1 and 2 were scary. Part 3 was fun because of the incredible, great 3D in the movie. The rest of them were just something else. Although that one where Jason had the person in a sleeping bag, that's pretty cool. That one clip, and where somebody's frozen. Yeah, time flies. God, those were made so long ago. It's amazing. Once part 1 came out, was extremely successful, extremely popular. They started making a part 2 that was also extremely popular and scary. And from there, they just made part 3, which was still early 80s. And then they just started making them really, really quickly in the 80s. And to tell you the truth, I don't think any of them were really good. Like I said, small clips were good. But for the most part, those movies, I don't know, they're not really watchable. They're not good. And I haven't really watched a lot of the new ones. Sure, they're good, but there's the proof. Friday the 13th. Keep your eyes open for a giant man named Jason. Or in the first 2 movies, a smaller man. Actually, the first one, he was like a boy still. Although he was deceased, apparently, in that water. And came out and got that woman, who was then dragged into the water. As you recall, at the end of part 1. Then part 2. The Utes returned to the area, foolishly, and started getting in trouble. By this point, we knew that the Utes who smoked illegal substances or had adult relations out of marriage were the first to get the boot from Jason. Remember, it was not Jason in the first movie, it was his mother. And then Jason came alive and started taking names and numbers there in part 2. And then throughout the years, then really in part 3, which was like the next day, he was a giant with a whole new different body. So he comes out of the water, the boy with developmental disabilities. Part 2, he has the mask on, the sack, and the overalls. That was a nice look. That was a good look. He was still a small guy. A average man could take him on in part 2. And then, as we saw in part 3, the 3D, Jason is, looks like an NFL player. He's a giant. He's a very large man, and a normal, average man at that point, part 3, would get their butt kicked by Jason. Unlike 1 and 2, Jason, part 1, of course, he was the boy in the water. That's part 1. Part 2, he was the young man out of the water with the sack and the overalls. Still heavily influenced by his mother. Remember, he had that memorial to his mother, whose head was removed by the female heroine of part 1. Let's take a look at that. Part 1 and part 2 are female empowerment movies. They showed that a physically smart, psychologically smart American female could beat a young woman could beat a adult female there in part 1. And actually, that adult female, Jason's mother, she was actually getting a little older. So it was like a 20-year-old beating up a 50-year-old lady. Part 2, she was like a college girl. Jason was a young man, or even, I don't know, maybe a teenager still. So, he's getting stronger. And then part 3, Jason's the size of a NFL or, Penn State football player. Speaking of which, Penn State, remember Joe Paterno? It was my thought that Joe Paterno knew about Sandusky long before. And he didn't want to know anymore, because, after all, what does that have to do with beating an opponent on the football field? That's my thought. As far as I'm concerned, Jopa knew that his right-hand man, Sandusky, enjoyed the illegal activities that he enjoyed. And he chose to ignore it. And it is my thought that Sandusky did not get the head coach job because Joe knew that Jerry had criminal issues. As we know, Jerry Sandusky, I believe he's still alive. He's an elderly man in a state prison in Pennsylvania for his crimes. Joe Paterno obviously knew Jerry had a house with a school in the backyard. Obviously, Joe knew Jerry's that sports thing that Jerry was using to find victims. And another thing, Joe Paterno knows everything about that campus except that his right-hand man, Buddy, was involved with some really bad stuff. Yeah. This here is New York State. It's a great area. We're not far from the Lake Ontario, which would be that way. Or maybe, yeah, I think that's west. That's north. Right. That's south. 2 hours that way, 2.5 hours, you're at the Pennsylvania border. Go that way, about a half hour or 40 minutes, you're at Lake Ontario. You go that way, about 3 hours or less on the thruway, you're be in Love Canal. Love Canal. The Decom 20 YouTube channel has done videos from Love Canal. It's an amazing place still. Abandoned homes, abandoned cars, abandoned property. A lot of times you don't know if homes are being lived in there still. The area where the school was and the homes where the toxic waste was coming up in people's yards is fenced in. A fence around that. Only a fool would jump that fence and go digging around in there looking for stuff. However, there's still roads open that are kind of abandoned, along with some properties right there in the Love Canal area. This is not Love Canal. This here is the Loop Road Restoration Area, overseen by the New York State Department of Corrections, partnered with Ducks Unlimited through a Great Lakes Restoration Initiative grant to restore 125 acres of wetland and 15 acres of grassland. The project included installing a water control structure to allow the state to manage water levels. Nice. It's good to control water levels, right? 1972 flood. Actually, we're coming up on the anniversary of the 1972 flood. 1972, June 1972, which I believe is just days away. The anniversary. Hurricane Agnes came over the Corning, the Valley, Pennsylvania, up here area, and kind of stopped. And the Chemung River flooded, the Susquehanna River flooded, and everything else flooded. Corning, New York, was flooded. The levee system broke, and at nighttime, and I believe it was more than a dozen people died in Corning due to the flooding. That is the Chemung. Elmira, New York, downriver from Corning, was flooded, and in daylight, there's video of this on YouTube, the water was going over the walls into the city of Elmira. Elmira still had businesses open after the flood, but downtown Elmira is not what it used to be, obviously. Athens, Pennsylvania, downtown Athens, Pennsylvania, part of the valley was flooded when the Chemung River broke through the levee there, right there in Athens, and flooded Athens, Williamsport, Harrisburg, all down that area from the Susquehanna, just in the Athens, Pennsylvania area, just straight past the downtown is where the Chemung River and the Susquehanna River merge, and then the Chemung becomes the Susquehanna, and that flooded those cities downstream. However, like here, where there is more management of water levels, the Chemung River is better able to maintain its pre-flood levels due to some heavy construction west of Corning, actually south and west, I think, right across the border. And so because of that, and because other reasons, Corning has not seen flooding since 1972. Elmira has not seen flooding since 1972. However, 2011, the two hurricanes came over the area, and Athens borough was flooded in 2011. And this time, unlike 1972, when the Chemung River burst through the levee in Athens borough, the Susquehanna River went over its banks and flooded Athens borough. Downtown Athens borough was flooded for the second time in recent times, 1972, June. I believe it was 17th, 1972, Athens Borough was flooded. And then 2011, Athens Borough was flooded. Except this time it was the Susquehanna River. And right where those two places flooded Athens, Athens sits right in between the Chemung River and the Susquehanna River. And then a couple miles just south of that is where the two rivers merge. So, back to the point. It's Friday the 13th. Enjoy your Friday the 13th. Come here to Loop Road Restoration. Look at this wonderful view. Birds. There's birds. I'm not going out in those weeds, though. Thank you. Have a great July, June, Friday the 13th.